that?
Count from 10 in your head, and then we can delete the outweighing after we're done recording.
Hmm. Okay, giant blank pause. So this is going to be a short one. Combination of reasons. One, guinea pig died while we were watching the episode, so we had to stop. So we're just gonna do the bookend world at the very beginning of the episode. The king is back from the TV show Sliders. Other additional reason, contractors might burst into the house and start fixing our ceiling. Um, and so I'll have to go. I might have to go deal with them because we have no idea when they'll show up. Um, so I am silent or Ukakisa. I am a philosopher and ethicist.
Hey, I'm Lee. I'm the guy who's into alternatives.
So there wasn't actually too much in this particular episode. Or this particular world. The cue ball is in prison, and he's being put on trial because his doppelganger in this world uh, apparently enjoyed doing graffiti art, which in this world is a crime. It's also can be a crime in our world. The main difference being that in this one, um, it can seemingly count as destruction of property, government property, possibly private property. I don't actually remember. I think it's government social property. Uh, it also constitutes a flagrant disregard for your community, and so the judge sentenced him to the maximum possible sentence of death by lethal injection. Um, the appeals process of this world is the judge says, I appeal on the grounds that X, and the judge says, either I accept or I deny the appeal, and that's the entire appeal process. It's done at the time. It was instituted in their world, obviously. California Proposition 99, the Instant Justice Initiative. Another notable difference of this world is that there is only a court of 9 of peers as opposed to a court of 12. Um, their possible political commentary on it is the overuse of the death penalty for relatively minor and crimes, possibly extending it to the use of the death penalty at all, because you're killing somebody in general. In this case, you're killing somebody over, something minor. Just
Yeah.
So this is going to be a more Koki alternate history episode.
I feel like we can stretch out some commentary on this bookend world, but I remember this was sort of like it's one of those things that at face value it's like this is absolutely absurd. How would it work? And it's kind of like the hippie world where it's just sort of like it depends, but actually, so the point of divergence deciding in terms of the actual amount, basically the standards of courts being lower, right? You don't need as many jurors to do the conviction. You may not need all the jurors to agree on the conviction, and also the death penalty is a bit more of a states' rights matter. And I think that the creators might have had this in mind because the defense lawyer says, I object on the grounds that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment, which is something that was decided in the 70s in our timeline, and presumably in this alternate timeline too, but it might be the author's way of thinking that, oh, this is when things went downhill. It took an even more extreme stance that, opened the door for the death penalty for even relatively minor offenses not being seen as cruel and unusual. But another thing that happens that I suppose is worth thinking about is broken windows as a, I guess, criminal justice philosophy. And it does have an amount of data backing, but its application has generally been kind of racist. So the idea is that in a neighborhood, if you see, or I think it was done in schools actually, if you pass by a house with broken windows on your way to school, you're more likely to engage in various activity. And I know there's like correlation and causation stuff. I don't know their full methodology, but I'm pretty sure they compare like with like, and it's like all else being equal, if you see, vandalism or other signs of destruction, you are more likely to be aggressive or at least regard the rules a little less. And it does seem like, you're not even, you see sort of a credible display that maintaining a certain civic order is not as important. And so, this is not actually cited as the reason Wynn is being sentenced to death. They put a lot of emphasis on this is disregard for public property. But I'm wondering if they're just talking that up to kill him, right? The idea is it's that egregious an offense because the idea of saying, well, if you let this go, then it'll lead to further crime. And the next thing you know, society is going to be a bit more criminal. Now, is this a full picture? Obviously, there's some sort of cultural shift we don't get to see. We don't know how long he's been in this world. Clearly, the court process is really quick. And the idea of like speeding it up, especially considering that the penalties are this severe, I guess that judge has a lot more cases to look at.
The jury of 9 peers would also have been a way to speed up the deliberation process. You could make it so that the trial only has to be, what's it called? Majority rules, similar to like the Supreme Court, and you'd have fewer people to need to come to such an agreement.
Yeah, we don't know if it was consensus, like if it was unanimous or majority rules in this particular case, but reducing the jurors definitely make things go faster. And it's worth noting that this is a death penalty situation, and the death penalty in our world is considerably more expensive than life in prison, specifically because of the appeals process.
You will also spend more time in jail if you have the death penalty than if you have life.
Yeah, you're more likely to die with life in prison than you are with the death sentence. So there's a whole lot going on there. But I suppose the long and short is that they felt the need to streamline the process, partly because they're exercising these draconic policies on more and more people. And I don't think Cassidy mentioned broken window sort of philosophy behind laws and punishments being racist, but I do think it's worth noting that you're not going to target the the vandals for a lot of this stuff because you're not going to catch. So more often than not, it seems as though black homeowners are sort of funding the bill for not actually fixing it in time due to financial reasons or just logistical. And generally speaking, this kind of stuff. I mean, the issue of all rules is that they tend to be selective. We're not really seeing racial injustice in this world. We don't see very much of it, but I think it's worth noting that when we open the door to this kind of arbitrary and severe enforcement of the law, just the way people are, this is going to probably show some inequalities in society, and we're going to see this lead to a not so great society. Something that I guess before I transition to that, I guess this is something worth commenting on, right? Even if we know for a fact that these minor crimes are an actual threat to social order and just generally likely to lead to actual violence against people and theft and stuff like that, what are your thoughts on actually coming down with this kind of stuff?
I mean, I feel like if we're going to engage with criminal activities, we should de-incentivize, the criminal activities, but penalties should only be applied to actual criminal activities and not potentials. So the fact that you can do something, or the fact that an action you have could, at some point down the road, lead to something else via like a butterfly effect, I feel like is pushing the limits of what one should be held accountable for. They should be more held of their own actions and not the potential future actions of another.
I suppose, yeah, this kind of goes into scenarios like Minority Report or Psychopaths, if anyone has seen either of his things. I've seen neither, but I understand the general premise is about preventing crime.
I too have seen neither.
And I suppose that is something worth noting. You
How?
also suggested putting lights through the graffiti in this world. Is it possible that this language is obfuscating something that Quinn might have done? Not to say that Quinn was necessarily a good guy, but like, we don't know the specific circumstances in which his double did the graffiti. If his double did in fact do this graffiti, this is an assumption on Quinn's part. We don't have any information on this.
Yeah, we have a little bit of an information. We do know that there is eyewitness testimony, which granted is capable of being flawed. This is a well-known fact. But they also have, I believe, fingerprint and video evidence.
Okay, so perhaps, unless it's a completely broken legal system, which very well could be worse than that Quinn's double may be the culprit. Or in fact, Quinn may be the culprit for all we know. And he's just in denial. But, like, it may have had, like, some sort of political message that was disruptive, and that may have been the main reason why it was so hard. the death penalty. But I suppose the main sort of rationale I can imagine is this whole thing that you let little crimes slide, then bigger ones down the line are going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's also unclear. I mean, this is maybe a California thing. We don't know California's geopolitical situation. For all we know, California could be an independent country. Though there are some stipulated legal terms that makes me think that it's bound to the U.S. Constitution.
It could just be inspired by the U.S. Constitution. Many constitutions around the world have a history of that.
Yeah, there's I suppose it goes without saying, while this seems like a relatively modern world, at least for the sliders, it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay.
Yeah, especially because they had to actively engage in a jailbreak. Um, like he's being sentenced and he's being let out of the courthouse, and they shoot the timer, and the professor and Rembrandt, at least I believe, punch a couple of the guards. I don't remember whether Cue Ball does or what Cue Ball does, like if he headbutts them or something.
Yeah, actually, they were pretty confident in their ability to take on guards.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Well, later on in the episode, we see Quinn is pretty built, but Drew and Rembrandt, they look like just guys. It's kind of weird to think that these are like commando level fighters.
There's also a good aspect of it as well, is the sheer element of surprise that you can get from suddenly a person's punching me and I was not expecting this. It could be also the cultural attitudes of this world, the fact that people maybe just aren't as violent, especially like people in the audience looking at the trial probably are assumed to be less prone to aggression than the person on trial itself.
I was assuming that the people are behind these laws are right. Killing people is an effective deterrent that makes people less likely to do crime, or that making sure that there's less vandalism of public property means that just generally people's disposition to go against the law and violence is lower.
I mean, I'm not assuming that. I think that is generically wrong, and the people would just create laws in order to imprison more people.
So why do you think people are less violent in this world?
No, it's just a possibility. I have no reason to believe one way or the other, but it could be that people are just less violent in this world. Do I have proofs of that? No, not really, other than the fact that the guards were suddenly surprised. I'm just throwing out possible options.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. I haven't read too much into that. So, yes, slide.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Puerto Rico, do you have any other thoughts specifically on this kind of stuff on vandalism around?
I can't really think of any. There's also the possibility of at some point we'll end up revisiting the episodes just because I'm obsessed with them.
Fair enough, fair enough. So,
What's Puerto Rico like in this world?
so it's worth noting that. Oh, I suppose it's worth noting actually in the United States, from 1972 to I think 2020, it was ruled that it does not 72 cases and 11 case. And in the case of Puerto Rico, that wasn't something that was started in 1972. That was always kind of the case. Though it's worth noting that in Puerto Rico, 12 jurors is in Puerto Rico's constitution. Now, this is another world, maybe things changed, but considering how recent the norm of 12 jurors changed in our history, I think this could be inclined to Puerto Rico's constitution as well. But in Puerto Rico, up until 2020, when it ruled in the United States that it had to be unanimous, it was 9 out of 12 of the jurors had to agree. Now, the general practice was still unanimity, but it is worth noting that Puerto Rico was a bit closer in some regards to this world and a bit further away. I don't think the death penalty had been the norm in Puerto Rico since its incorporation into the United States. This is Google, I should probably check.
I'm assuming that also in this world, the death penalty is probably more, widely used. So maybe they wouldn't be shipping cue ball off to Indiana to be murdered.
So capital punishment had been abolished in Puerto Rico in 1929. So this was under U.S. government. So if we're going really far back on the divergence, it's possible that Puerto Rico still has public or capital punishment. But if we're going from the 1970s point of divergence, where we're assuming the world is otherwise more or less the same, I'm guessing that Puerto Rico is not like California in this regard. That there is not, capital punishment, especially for penalties as mild as spray painting a freeway. That being said, it is possible that if broken windows, like this philosophy behind law enforcement does become the norm, Puerto Rico will have increasingly harsh sort of sentences for that kind of thing. Like this might land people like in prison, it might involve them doing a lot of hard labor. I mean, I'm putting it out there, and we already commented on this. Life in prison isn't great either. I've been in the neighboring Dominican Republic, and usually I had a maximum of 32 years or something like that. Though it's been a while since I've followed the Dominican politics, so don't quote me on that. But this is like, I'm not going to say, Puerto Rico is so much better because it wouldn't have the death penalty and it has 12 jurors. I'm guessing that there's still going to be some pretty bad things that, Puerto Rico oftentimes down with the U.S. culture and without a lot of U.S. cultural elements. So, short answer is about Puerto Rico, it's not great. But it might not be as bad as California.
Yeah. So as noted, this is probably just a shorter episode. We still have to actually watch, the actual episode for The King is Back. But in the meanwhile, you have anything else you would like to add, Koki?
The excellency, I guess.
Have fun.